Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we'll be learning something about the intents. So basically when you see an application has an activity, and whenever you use any application from the Play Store you might have noticed that there are certain buttons on the activity, and when you click a button or when you click something on the activity, what happens is that a new activity opens up. So basically the functionality of an application is similar to the web page. For example, in case of a website, you have multiple web pages and a web page has a link on it, and when you click on the link a new web page opens up. So in case of an Android application, instead of a web page we are having the activities, and whenever we want to click something on the activity we want to switch to a new activity, and that is basically done by using the intents. So intent is basically used in order to switch from one activity to another activity. So in this tutorial we'll be learning how to use intents so that we could switch from one activity to another activity. That is, when we click something on the first activity we switch to the next activity. So for this tutorial we'll be creating a new project. So we simply select this start a new Android application project, and let's name this as intent application. Click next, and in this case we'll be using the API level 15. Click next, and we'll be selecting a blank activity, and let's name this activity as the main activity. Click finish. So as you could see we have our activity screen right here. So this activity screen is for the main activity, and what we do is that we delete this text view, and as you could see we have the relative layout onto our activity. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we'll change the background color of this activity. So we go to properties, go to background, and let's say we want to give it a color. So let's give it a random color. So let's say hash 009900. So as you could see we have applied a color to this activity. Now the next thing which we do is that we drag a large text onto this activity in order to identify this activity, and now let's change the text of this to main activity or first activity. So we go to properties, then we change the text to first activity. And now the next thing which we do is that we also drag a button to our activity, so that when we click a button we could switch on to a new activity by using intents. So as you could see this is our new button. Now once the button is dragged up onto the activity, the next thing which we do is that we give a ID to the first activity as well as the new button. So we simply select this, go to properties, and let's change the ID to, let's say, first text. As the text is present onto our first activity we name it as first text. And now the next thing which we do is that we also assign an ID to the button. So we go to properties, select its ID, and let's give it an ID of first button. Now as you could see our first activity is ready. Now the next thing which we want to perform is that when we click this button something should happen. So there are two ways in order to do that. So the first way is by adding an on-click listener or on-touch listener to this button, but instead of doing that we have one more simple way. So in order to handle click event of this button, we go right here to the text view of the XML, then we go inside the button right over here, and then we type Android on click. And on click is basically used when we want to perform some action when the button is clicked. So in this case let's say we want to execute a method on clicking the button. So let's name the method as on click. So we have successfully added a method to this. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we need to define the method so that we decide what happens when the user clicks this button. Now what we want to achieve is that when the user clicks this button, the user should be able to switch to a new activity which is called as the second activity. But the thing is that we only have one activity right now, so we need to add one more activity to our project. So in order to add a new activity we simply go to the app folder, and inside the app folder we have a Java folder. So we select it, and inside the first folder which contains the main activity, we simply right click on the folder, go to new, go here at the bottom to activity, and in the activity we select the blank activity, and let's name this activity as activity 2. So once we have named the activity, we simply hit finish, but you also need to check that these two check boxes right here for the launcher activity as well as the use as a fragment should be unchecked, and that is because if we click this that is launcher activity, then it is going to launch this activity by default. So once you are done with this, you hit finish, and as you could see, a new activity has been created by Android Studio for us. Now let's go ahead and give a background color to this. So let's say the background color is hash 006669, and as you could see, the background color changes. So this thing right here is our first activity and this thing is our second activity. So now we drag a text onto this activity, and let's name this text as the second activity. So we go in the properties, go to text, and we change the text to second activity. Now as you could see, the text has been changed and it is going to show us a warning, and that is because we have not added a string resource, but in this case we won't be needing to add a string resource, so you could just ignore the warning. And now the next thing which we do is that we add a button to our screen. So let's go ahead and drag and drop a button to our activity, align it in center, and now let's give an ID to the text as well as the button. So as you could see, we have given an ID to the first activity or the text on the first activity, and the ID was first text and this was the first button. So we switch on to the second activity and we give it an ID of second text and second button. So for the text, we are going to type in second text, go to the button, give it an ID of second button, and also as we did in the first activity, we are also going to assign the onClick method to this button right here. So before adding an onClick to it, I would like to mention one more way of adding the onClick. So instead of going into the text view right here and adding the onClick to the tag right here, what you could do is that you could just go into properties after selecting the button, and you will find a method here which is called as an onClick. So as you could see, this is the method right here which is called as the onClick, and you could type in the onClick for this. So for example, if we want to add a method which is called as onClick2, so we type onClick2. So as you could see, we have added a method over here. So now once we are done with this, we are pretty much done with designing the activities, and in the next tutorial we will be writing some Java code using intents, and we are going to use an intent so that when we click this button right here, it is going to switch to this activity, which is the second activity. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.